Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Council for Monday, June 2nd, 2014, to order. We will begin with an invocation led by Councillor Papp, followed by the singing of the national anthem, also led by Councillor Papp, and I would ask all that are able to rise.
Thank you. Let us bow our head. This prayer and benediction is I've purposely selected it in memory of Isaac Real and the very, very memorable event that took place here on Saturday in his honor. It's the prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is discord, union. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. O Divine Master, grant that we may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is through the tragic death that unfortunately with Isaac, we were born to eternal life and will forever remember him. Thank you. Amen.
Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patron of, in all thy Son's command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Councillor Papp. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It has been moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the agenda for the June 2nd, 2014 regular meeting of council be adopted. Are there any changes to the agenda? Councillor Papp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and with the discretion and the consensus of all of my members of council, I'd like to add under Section 13, President consideration of reports from members of council, 13.1.2, and it would be a verbal report on the Pelham Seniors Advisory Committee meeting of May 29th.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Lane? Are we ready for that amendment? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Any other changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest. That is any conflicts of interest that any members of council need to disclose. Are there any conflicts that members need to disclose at this time? Can that be noted in the minutes, please, Madam Clerk? Now we move to hearing of presentations and or delegations. We have a delegation, and it's by Paul Overholt regarding representing Crime Stoppers of Niagara. Mr. Overholt, thank you for joining us this evening.
Dave Augustine, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I'm Paul Overholt from Crime Stoppers of Niagara, and I just want to tell you a little bit about us. And so Crime Stoppers of Niagara is a not-for-profit, community-based charitable program involving the cooperation of the community, the media, and the police in the fight against crime. Citizens representing the entire Niagara region volunteer their time to manage the program. You only have to listen to the news reports to know that Niagara region is not immune to major crime, sexual assault, domestic violence, robbery, drug deals, and the list goes on and on, unfortunately. Crime Stoppers encourages members of our community to step forward with information concerning these crimes has become an invaluable investigative tool for the Niagara Regional Police. How do the police rate us? Well, fingerprinting's number 1, DNA, Crime Stoppers number 3. Based on the simple fact that for every crime that is committed, someone other than the criminal has information that might solve it. It's obvious that the predators of crime look to commit those acts in secret, taking every precaution not to be caught and make every attempt to conceal their actions. However, sometimes someone who has witnessed a crime can't or won't come forward to the police simply out of fear. This is where the Crime Stoppers of Niagara has a valuable place in our community. It is the vehicle for those who witness a crime to connect, to be an anonymous tipster, to pass along the valuable and timely information to the appropriate authorities. Who benefits? Everyone in the Niagara region benefits from the program, except the criminals. The community benefits by having citizens involved, crimes are solved, property is recovered, and drugs are confiscated, consequently making the community a safer place for you, your children, and your business. How can you help? Crime can happen anywhere on the streets, in businesses, schools, homes in our area, even in your neighborhood. Here's how you can assist Crime Stoppers of Niagara. Promote the Crime Stoppers program by displaying promotional material in your place of business. Place a bumper sticker on your vehicle. Make a financial contribution to Crime Stoppers of Niagara. As a charitable organization, we rely on generosity of businesses, individuals, and foundations to support our work. Donate an action item to one of our fundraising events, our gala. Report a crime online, text, mention Niagara, or call the 1-800-22-TIPS number. Okay? Any questions on that section? Okay. Just something that happened just recently. Grimsby Mayor Bob Bentley and our board member Michael White recently had a photo shoot where the city of, or town of Grimsby has allowed to have Crime Stopper stickers put on their vehicles. So Mr. Bentley, who has served on the Niagara Regional Police Services Board, said the services is of value to the community and count on his municipal counterparts to follow the town's lead. Okay. So one more, some facts. Since our inception in 1985, 1,889 arrests have been made, 3,395 cases cleared, $75,000 in rewards paid, about $6 million in property recovered, $30 million in drugs seized, and $664,280 total recovered, 115 weapons taken off the streets. So what I'm here tonight is to ask you if you would be kind enough to put Crime Stopper stickers on your town vehicles. And one up to each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. As you know, the police force has had these on their cars for years, and as you may have noticed, the new cars that they went black and white, we're developing a new sticker for them to make sure the look remains nice. So that is my request. We're planning on going through the whole Niagara region, hitting each town, city, and asking them to do the same.
Okay, let's see if there's any questions.
Questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Overholt. And I do want to inform council that Mr. Overholt lives in town and serves on the board of Crime Stoppers and has done so for a number of years. So thank you very much. 5 years. So thank you very much for your presentation. Do you have any questions? Councillor Durling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Overholt, in your presentation, you do mention that businesses could display them on their windows as well.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, have you made that approach to that, or can we make the Pelham Business Association aware that this is available and give you as the contact in order for them to get stickers for
The
their
city of
windows?
Port Colborne approached us through their business council, and they were having some graffiti issues and some small thefts in the area, and we have given them stickers and other paraphernalia to hand out to some of their customers. They have also put the stickers, bumper stickers, on their vehicles in port.
Just as further, can we direct staff to inform the PBA that this is available and give them the confirmation, or at least a contact, so that they can be aware of this?
Yeah, I think that's certainly in order.
If you We've been in an Avondale store in the last while. We have a relationship with Avondale stores, Ice Dogs, and ourselves. And if you go through to an Avondale store, you'll see they have a very large sticker. We do have the smaller ones, but they want a big one. So front door of each Avondale store now has a large sticker saying they support Crime Stoppers.
Thank you very much. Councillor King.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Overholt, just out of curiosity, is there an educational component to this that reaches out to the schools?
We have done presentations in the schools. We had a sign campaign a couple years ago. When you go to the States, some of the schools have their own programs. Some are independent, some are run in conjunction with the Crime Stoppers. They pay out $100 for any tip. They've done that because they don't want kids running around with a lot of money. We also try and counsel them. When you do get tip money, you remain anonymous. You don't tell everybody because it leads to robbery also.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Further?
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much for your presentation and for your service on the board. I do have a motion here. It's moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Lane, that the information presented by Crime Stoppers of Niagara delegation regarding Crime Stoppers program be received, and that the Crime Stoppers bumper stickers received be placed on Town of Pelham vehicles as appropriate. So the recommendation is to place them on the vehicles, and I think Councillor Durley's comment, direction to staff to contact the Pelham Business Association, no doubt the Chamber of Commerce as well, and encourage those members. We have Councillor Papp sits on the Chamber and Councillor Kersey sits on the Pelham Business Association, so
Great.
they can also bring it to those areas. So it would be a way to spread the word on that as well. So we're going to call the question on the motion before us. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, and we look forward to seeing those stickers. And certainly, again, thank you and congratulations on your 5 years of service with Crime Stoppers and your work.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Next, we have Regional Councillor Beatty with his report for this evening, straight from much interaction and much involvement in planning the very successful FCM conference. Congratulations.
Thank you. Much walking as well. And it's a case where it's 2 years in a row. Last year was Crossley's Reunion as a big event, and this year, as an educator, I did organize a number of conferences for up to 1,000 people. But it's like 1 or 2 keynoters and maybe 4 breakout workshops, maybe a couple of days, 8 workshops. We had 23 study tours. Those of you that were there are aware, and they ran multiple times, so it's quite an undertaking. A lot of people, a lot of hands in the water to make this go off successfully. And the most important partner was the weatherman, Sean. I'm going to bring out, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and staff, a number of items, not a large number, but a number from each of the area. The first one is the corporate services, mainly because of the large sum. Looking over $9 million gross in terms of a financial management system, but we were told by the former commissioner and also the treasurer prior to departure that we were really at risk not having a really fulsome, substantial program. I'm assuming, I don't serve, Mr. Mayor is the standing committee chair for this, but I believe that's not just the hard, not just the software, that's training as well, I would think.
That's correct. Yeah, it's the entire piece.
In terms of that, and you can see from my comments there that there appear to be a number of councillors looking at that very large ticket item and saying, we'd like annual reports in terms of what are the cost savings, what are the benefits, what are the efficiencies that we're going to achieve by having such a heavy investment in the system. The first item also in terms of planning and development, just for your information, I was involved directly with the planning committee when the memorandum of understanding was put together. One of the key areas I was interested in was the tree and forest conservation bylaw, because we weren't able to manage it by having just daytime staff available, so it got transferred over to the Conservation Authority, where there's people who can respond, usually when the change laws come up at 7 o'clock in the morning, that we've got Conservation Authority staff. And the view is, in particular, it's being echoed by our current CAO and with the support of council, that we're looking to more and more make this efficient. And the way I liken it is that perhaps the past model may have been perceived, maybe not intended, but perceived as being the region is there at the top of the pyramid and the local municipalities are below. The view now is more that we have the region of the center of the spoke and connected at the same level with all of the 12 municipalities. So I think you can see that tone, that attitude basically is going to permeate its way through the culture of the organization. I think we can all benefit from that. And anything, in my view, that can be done to streamline the process, so that our forms become more common, that we have GIS systems that are not different from one community to another, et cetera, is going to pave the way to having a better one service Niagara. And I know in many areas we've done an awful lot to try and improve. The Conservation Authority has done quite a lot to try and improve the time of development from the time of request for application for approval until final approval, whether it be a household with a garage or whether it be something like a large subdivision. So there's a lot of effort going in to try and making Niagara more streamlined and more business friendly. Under public health and social services, just noting the figure there, it does look like a lot of money over the next several years. But again, echo the fact that we are receiving only a fraction of what other communities, Windsor, Hamilton, etc. And when we do have Niagara Week after the election, I'm assuming it will go forward once we have a new government in place, or a slightly altered government, whichever the electors will decide, to go forward to try and press that issue, because it is a detriment to all of Niagara. When we're looking very often, month after month, at sometimes the highest unemployment rate, some of the very significant areas for prosperity initiatives and need to address poverty. This lack of funding on an equitable basis simply isn't sustainable for Niagara and the citizens of our community. We're on Public Works. This is just for your information, in particular for your Public Works staff, is that I see a report there that authorizes special events or cost recovery fee, $52 per event if the organic carts are not utilized. And I assume there's been some history of events where they've been taken there but not utilized, or the worst thing is that they're contaminated with garbage, and so the desire to have composting happen is not occurring. So I think that's meant to be an incentive to try and ensure that that program works the way it was intended. Another thing that it's a plague for all communities, and especially those that have rural roads, is the issue of illegal dumping. There's been a task force, a working group looking at ways and means in which we can have a better public education campaign, better monitoring, and disincentives put in place to try and improve that ongoing problem. And I can't tell you, you know more than I do, rural communities suffer far more than the urban communities, that kind of roadside dumping. And the one bullet there is that basically gives a temporary relief for an extension, I would say, Mr. Mayor, if I'm not mistaking the minutes from this committee, an extension to the length of time for the trial transit proposal for another year. And a fairly big one under Region Council, the second one, we received a really interesting proposal from Dr. Brandel from Vineland Research and Innovation Center. They're looking at creating a pretty massive greenhouse research facility. As you know, a lot of money has been invested in the last 5 or 6 years to try and, we've referred to it as the renaissance of that organization and its importance. One of the last study tours, actually, I led that tour today to that facility, and there's really sort of major things happening, partly preparing us for climate change, getting away from pesticides and more into biological controls, et cetera. And this greenhouse facility, we believe, will be a world-class facility and will attract more attention to Niagara as a center for research and development. There was an approval of a $1 million request, but phased over 5 years, $200,000 a year, but with the proviso that the other funders that they mentioned, whether it be federal government or the private sector, et cetera, do come up with their share. Those are the comments I have about this, but if there are any other questions, I'm glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Beatty, members of council, any questions for Councillor Beatty? Councillor Papp.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, to both of you, I'm just curious, why the extension for only 1 year for the intermunicipal transit? I'm just lost. Why? Can you just explain that to me?
Yeah, and I can take that if,
Yeah.
the idea there is, I think we put money in the budget. This is just the formal piece. It's hoped that something can be more formalized, movement can occur, and maybe the entire system will be sort of rejigged and worked together better. This is sort of giving an extra year in order to do that. We do have a council business planning session coming up on the 19th, is that correct, I think, to talk, of June, to talk about transit and to see if we can try and crack this nut one more time on moving it forward. So the idea was to give it that little bit of extra time, and it will take, it may have to be extended again, and I think the other piece is that maybe council was reluctant to extend it beyond the, too much farther beyond the mandate of this term of council. So they wanted to make sure that it continued, but that should it be required, it can be extended one more time, or a more permanent workable solution can come into play. So I think we should look at it to be more optimistic than pessimistic.
Yeah, I am looking at it optimistically, because what you'll hear from the Pelham Seniors Advisory Group is that's one of the top things about is, let alone intra-municipal, but intermunicipal, and that's part of something that I'm giving you credit, to continue the movement on that, because somewhere along the line, we have to come up with some sort of module approach to this, because we can't keep dancing around. And we heard the same thing at FCM. One of the big things is movement of people, goods, and services across the country and inside the cities. So we have a chance here to do something, and I'm glad to see that this is extended. So this is a continuation of preparing,
That's right.
developing the model of how we would undertake that type of a municipal transit system in here. Okay, thank you.
I think
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I don't serve on that standing committee, but there are some detractors of the program
Yeah.
that's currently on council, and I think to get it into the next term of council for hopefully some other faces at the table. One of the factors is the integration, if we are successful in getting the GO Transit.
Right.
I'm encouraged by the fact that we're showing a ridership already of commuters that is greater than Barrie. Barrie already has the service, so my point is, why wouldn't we already have the service? Because our numbers exceed that of Barrie. Once that's in play, that'll help us with the Grimsby to Niagara Falls corridor, and we can get better. And we just have, one of the reports here is the nodes and corridor study, and I think we need to look at what are the linkages in terms of, for people, perhaps not transit to every street in every community, obviously, but to have places where you can go short distance and basically pick up a regional transit to connect you with the GO Transit for in-between communities and also to the metropolitan Toronto area. And I might point out, I'm going to ask if I can just approach Councillor Durley with a promise I gave him. We had a desire on the part, right from the beginning, to try and maximize Niagara, not to the exclusion of Niagara Falls, but the fact is a lot of people think Niagara Falls is the one horse pony show, that there's Niagara Falls and that's it, been there, done that. Our job was to try and promote all of it, and I think we did a pretty exceptional one in total. Both companion tours and study tours have gone through this community. We actually, fortunately, were able to observe from the hill the real park opening as we passed by the other day. And it's a case where this is called a video. In fact, it's not a video. It's a series of still shots. It begins with the map of the 12 communities showing our proximity to the Hamilton GTA, the lakes, the Niagara River, USA, etc., and to try and sort of give a sense of the enormity of Niagara, to a great extent to try and encourage people to come back, to look at some of the strengths, some of the things that are there. So there's 4 different videos that were put together. One was to be en route to Ball's Falls. It's called the Giant's Rib, and there is, you can access it via YouTube. If you just type in Giant's Rib, there's a very informative short video about the origin, the creation of the Niagara Escarpment, about the breadth and depth of it, and about some of the very scenic, wonderful things, not just in our region, but throughout, past our region. Then a short video about Ball's Falls, and then on the return trip from Ball's Falls, which came up 24 and down 20, etc., a series of things about the various conservation areas, including our Comfort Maple, a lot of questions about that in terms of its age and so on, the E.C. Brown area. And I haven't looked at the whole video because it's meant to be a looping thing, that we couldn't paste it out for the length of the bus ride, so it's a looping thing that was going on continuously. But you have on your website, fortunately, a number of very good shots. I went to West Lincoln, and a couple of others, and I couldn't find that kind of material, so I asked the technician to drop down some of the things. We did talk, as we went through, about the number of features of our community, which included the restoration of Peninsula Lakes, what was an ugly scar on the land face. Pointed out, I don't know that the Crosley mural is the largest north of Mexico, but I've been told that, and I want to believe that. It's a great public art feature. Did have a chance, because on both occasions, from the Ball's Falls trip, we did stop at the downtown, and people got a chance to glimpse down where the arches are, and we talked about the farmers market and the wonderful concert series. They were rather astounded at the number of people that we get out at concerts on the Thursday. Then talked about the East Swan Hill development in terms of the places to grow and that kind of stuff. So it was quite informative. I got really strong. I went on 4 tours altogether. Very positive feedback from people that we did take the time to expose them. The biggest exposure was going to be with the lakefront enhancement tours, one on Lake Erie and one on Lake Ontario today. But because of the tightness of time, they weren't able to loop back to Highway 20. They were basically going up the Queenie, the fastest route they could, and then along the lake shore for the various projects. But if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'll pass this on for Councilor Durley, and if you'd like to share it with others.
Thank you very much.
That'd be
I
great.
appreciate that. Thank you for the information.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you. Anything further for Councillor Beatty? Thank you very much, Councillor Soto. It's been moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that Regional Councillor Beatty's report of June 2nd be received for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you again for your report and your work on
Thank you,
FCM.
Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the members of council. I was really impressed with the number of you that had an interest in terms of the aspects of the FCM. I hope that you were rewarded with information and contacts and so on that made it worth your while. But it was noted and was appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Now we move to minutes. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. The minutes of our meeting of May 20th. Any errors or omissions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for no errors or omissions. Thank you for that. Now we move to consent agenda items to be considered in block, but we always ask if there's any consent agenda items that members would like to lift for separate consideration. Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to lift for separate consideration item 1141, the Pelham Cares request for tax relief.
I'm sorry, where is that here? 1141. The numbering is different here.
It is going to be this one?
Yes, okay. And Councillor Durley?
1151, the resolution from the Township of Wayne.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that the following consent agenda items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. 1, recommendations, Policy and Priorities Committee from May 26th, and the Policy and Priorities Committee minutes of May 26th. That was number 2. Number 3, staff reports of a routine nature or information or action. The first is the 2014 annual repayment limit, and the recommendation is the council receive the annual debt repayment limit report for information. The next item is information correspondence items. The first is the AODA legislative review, and that's from the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. That was the second. The third is the One Foundation for Niagara Health System, and councillors will note that we've asked that a representative of One Foundation will come to our next meeting. I think it will be on the 16th to attend. A thank you from the Child Advocacy Center for our permissive grant, and we continue to support that group. Thank you from the Bizzato family. Thank you from Pelham Cares for their permissive grant. And then there's a few items from the Niagara Regional Municipality, and they include information regarding pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, approval of illegal dumping working group initiatives. Councillor Beatty alluded to that. Information regarding intermunicipal transit, smart growth design criteria and application process for development charge reductions, the Niagara Nodes and Corridor Study, which Councillor Beatty also referred to, and an update on the Memorandum of Understanding for the Planning Function in Niagara, which this council has approved and also Councillor Beatty spoke to. And finally, some committee minutes for information. The first, Summerfest committee minutes from various meetings, and then also the Heritage Pelham Committee minutes from January 2014. Do any members have any questions or comments on any of those items under consent? Okay, so are we ready for calling the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Councillor Ribbiak, you moved the Pelham Cares request, or you lifted, sorry.
I lifted it. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I lifted it is that as I read the letter, what came to mind was the discussion we had in our last policy and priority meeting with respect to permissive grants, and how that change process would include waivers from various charges and fees. And I wondered as I read that whether in fact a request for tax relief, property tax relief, might properly fit into that. And if so, maybe we would want to postpone consideration of that until it's within the other permissive grant program.
Okay, thank you. I think we should hear from the clerk on this, not the clerk, the treasurer. I'm looking at the treasurer, but hearing the clerk type. The treasurer, to just give us a little bit more information. She and I actually had a conversation about this.
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. The municipal act that's quoted in this letter is the incorrect act. It's actually the act of 2001, and it is legislated, so they don't have to apply for a permissive grant or waiving of fees. It's legislation that there would be tax relief. The tax relief would be on the commercial portion only of any building or structure. At this time, the building that they have, in order to be a little bit proactive about this request, we have gone to MPAC and indicated to them that the new owners would be Pelham Cares, and in that case, would they be considering a change of use for that building? And if so, we don't have to go through this process. They'll get their tax relief by it going from commercial to residential. So we're just waiting to hear back from MPAC on that. If they leave a portion commercial, they are eligible for a 40% tax rebate on that commercial portion of the property.
Does that help, Councillor?
It does. I'm not sure that the request isn't for the whole tax relief. 40%, I guess, is, or is it because 40% would be the commercial portion of the building?
That's correct.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the recommendation would be that we receive it and that we direct it to the treasurer to process as applicable and as she outlined.
It sounds like it's automatically going to be considered anyway.
It would be if it's commercial still, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Do you want, I'm sorry, I saw Councillor Durley and I see Councillor Kersey. Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question through you to the treasurer. That reduction, if in fact it does come through, would mean a lack of revenue or loss of revenue to the town because nobody would collect that amount.
I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, the change in use?
No, if in fact it was still commercial and we granted them, or they were granted through 20762 of the Municipal Act, that they qualify for that, that would mean that if I owned that and was doing commercial, I would pay taxes on it, but because they do it, they would lose the tax. So we in fact are losing the revenue for that.
The 40% revenue, yes.
Okay, and in fact, if we're looking at permissive grant and building on what Councilor Rivia did say, if in fact there was a loss of that, and we have in fact given permissive grant in the past, the amount of loss could be taken away from the permissive grant. Anyway, I'll wait for a report to come back, but certainly there are scenarios that can be dealt with in this particular situation.
Under this section of the Act, it's all charities that could apply for a similar reduction of commercial.
But not all charities are treated the way we treat
That's right.
volunteers.
That's through the
Okay.
homes, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kersey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to our treasurer. So my understanding is that Pelham Cares, if they have any redundant space there, we're planning to lease that out to some other commercial establishment. Would that section of the property be exempt from this 40% relief? It would only apply to the 40% that they are using?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay,
Good. Yeah.
thank you. So I think the motion is moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King, that the correspondence from Pelham Cares dated May 21st requesting tax relief of the municipal portion of the tax levy be received and that the correspondence be directed to the treasurer for processing in accordance with municipal act provisions in this regard. Okay, we're fine with that. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Durley, you lifted an item regarding the Ontario Power Generation resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The resolution from the town of Wainfleet, after all the preamble, basically comes down to the fact that the Township of Wainfleet requests the Welland River Floodplain Association, which I believe has been fragmented somewhat, agree with the township to share information between each organization, including information the township has received from OPG, or Ontario Property Generation. And also that the town of Wainfleet requests the Conservation Authority form a stakeholder group consisting of the town of Wainfleet, the Conservation Authority, City of Welland, Township of West Lincoln, Town of Pelham, City of Hamilton, Haldimand County, Region of Niagara, Ministry of Natural Resources, the Seaway Authority, and OPG to study the ameliorate the impacts of the obstructions that flow on the river. Upon creation, the Conservation Authority shall provide information to each one. I have been invited to an informal group that was actually attended by members of OPG, members of the Conservation Authority, members of the ministry, and some property owners along the river who have been very, very diligent in recording different levels and different flows of that river. I feel it incumbent upon everybody to have the information that these people have in order to have a proper input here, because the Conservation Authority, this whole thing has come to a head because the Conservation Authority proposed some floodplain changes that were sort of not really relayed or communicated to everybody, and I feel that there is perhaps a bit of a trust or mistrust situation between property owners and them, and in fact some of the information that has been included in the floodplain study or the revised floodplain boundaries perhaps are in question, at least by the owners of property who have been there for 50 or 60 years and have never seen situations that are there. So I would like to support and endorse this, but add to it that another party be presented with the opportunity to take part in this. And Bruce Timms, the chair of the Conservation Authority, is fully aware of the players in this situation. And in fact, if they are giving total responsibility to do all the work to the Conservation Authority, this is counterproductive in the fact that all of this feedback has come back because of some of the actions that the Conservation Authority has taken in the first place. So I would like to make that into a motion.
Okay, so I think the clerk's put the motion,
I was speaking too fast for you. I think there's
No, I have most of it. I just don't know who the other party is that you wanted.
it is a landowner group of property or landowners that sit right at the confluence of Cream Street and the river, and there are several property owners in and along the east and west of that particular location. And Glenn Robbins has been very active in monitoring the levels. As a matter of fact, at one particular point, people from OPG were very, very amazed at the fact that instead of the river flowing to the Niagara River, it was flowing back towards Hamilton, which is completely untoward, and it was a complete surprise to them. These people, the folks that are there, and there's a farmer living right next door to this particular property that Mr. Robbins owns, that is looking at, in fact, if the floodplain was to be placed where the Conservation Authority has suggested, that his barn would be half underwater. So, there is some valuable information that these homeowners can give to the table in here, and I think that the Conservation Authority would be very wise in listening to these folks and getting some of the information that they do have and using that in their judgment in the fact of what things can be happening in that particular area and control of the flow of the Niagara River, which is so very important to all of us there.
okay, thank you. Is there a seconder then for that motion? Councillor Ribbiak seconding that motion, and just the wording of that.
So that communication,
It's okay, you can read it if you want.
that communication 11.5.1 be received and that the resolution contained therein passed by the Council of the Township of Wainfleet regarding the Ontario Power Generation information sharing be endorsed and supported. And that, sorry, I just have to go back to my notes. And that landowners at Cream Street and the river be invited to participate, and that the resolution be forwarded to all appropriate parties.
I'd say River Road, perhaps?
River Road, yeah.
River Road and
Sorry.
Cream, yes, that is the juncture, and there are property owners from both sides that did attend it, and there was some, actually some from the Township of Wainfleet as well, that provided some very, very valuable information.
Okay. And that was moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. Any further discussion to this? I know, as I think I reported to Council, I did attend the annual general meeting of the Niagara River, the Welland River landowners group and committee. Very, very informative. They, again, echoed what you were saying this evening, Councillor Durley, about sort of the history on the entire process, and it is very, very important to get the appropriate information out. The risk is that, and I think the Conservation Authority, as we heard in a presentation a couple of years ago, was ready to just say there's the new line without any public consultation, without any involvement, or really information. It was just relying on a report that had various assumptions in it. Since that time, there have been peer-reviewed reports and much activity, and many members of Pelham and other areas in the River Road, Cream Street area have been very, very active on that. So it is very appropriate that we include them in this. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much for raising it, Councillor Durley, and we look forward to seeing results and hearing about positive results for the work of this group. Thank you very much. That concludes the items under consent agenda. Next, we have presentation consideration of reports. The first is my report. You have the report there before you written. I'd just like to highlight a few items. The first is regarding the 6th Annual Pelham Mayor's Gala. Thank you so much to the very, very generous supporters, participants, volunteers, and the organizing committee. Together, we were able to raise more than $26,000 net from the annual Mayor's Gala. We were able to support 5 local charities or groups relating to youth-related activities: Big Brothers Big Sisters of South Niagara, Glennie Green Library Enhancement Fund, Fonthill Scouts, Pelham Cares for their Connecting Kids program, and Pelham Minor Hockey. It really was a first-class event, and first-class sponsors made it happen with our Murder on the Orient Express theme. Thanks to all of those that supported it. Since the gala began 6 years ago, the event has raised more than $160,000 to support local charities and local groups. Very, very positive. And I'd like to express thanks to Councillors King, Papp, and Ribiak for attending the gala this year. And all those that attended the gala. It was a wonderful, wonderful event. So thank you. And obviously, it only occurs because of the efforts of the organizing committee. So thank you for their efforts as well. The next item, and I'd like to discuss, is the Isaac Riel Memorial Skate Park grand opening. Councillor Papp, thank you for the special invocation this evening, and to members of council that were there, Councillor Lane, Councillor Papp, Councillor King, and Councillor Ribiak. It was a wonderful, wonderful event, very heartening, but also I think in comparing it to the Riel reveal, which occurred in December, which was very somber, this took on a very different and distinct feeling to it, and that was a feeling of celebration. And I think, Councillor Papp, as I reflect on your choice of invocation, very appropriate. Again, a transformation has occurred in the community, a transformation, as I said when I spoke there, a transformation from a baseball diamond into a skate park, and from grief into a celebration. And also how the community really did embrace this entire effort for about a year and a half, right when it first occurred in October of 2012 and right up till now. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful event, and a wonderful thing for the community. So it's great to see that something that members of our community have been asking for a number of years has finally come to fruition. So congratulations to all that planned it, and it was youth that planned the event, and of course staff was right there behind them, Ms. Van Ravensway and others supporting them, but making it their event. And thank you again to all of the sponsors and donors of the skate park. Just a special note, and I think this is noted in Ms. Van Ravensway report, that the park lights will be illuminated from dusk until 10 p.m. from now until, I think it's September 2nd. So give a longer chance for folks to use the park. Finally, I'll provide some commentary on this, and if councillors want to add to it, certainly welcome that. Regarding the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference, we heard Councillor Beatty speak about some of the study tours. Of course, this was hosted by Niagara Region and the City of Niagara Falls, and I think we should be proud here in Niagara to know that this is the largest that they've ever hosted. So many people attending it for the first time, the FCM conference, probably because of the location. I know when Mayor Diodati asked those in the audience at the opening ceremony, he said, how many have been here for the first time? About a third or more were at Niagara Falls. This was their first time, and presumably one of the key reasons why they wanted to attend the conference. And hopefully by every indication I've received, people were thinking it was a great conference. So that will be settled out as history writes its books, but certainly a wonderful, wonderful event. It was my honor to moderate a youth panel and reception on Friday, which engaged participants to help ask the question, how might we attract and retain young professionals to municipal government? That included not only sitting around a table like this and as a counselor, but sitting around a table like that for staff, or up in staff offices, or out in the field, as it were. It was very, very informative discussion, many ideas, and actually we used a bit of almost a creative problem-solving process, and participants were able to not only give their ideas and build on others, but also rate their ideas. So FCM is coming forward with a municipal best practice book for youth involvement in a council, but also in municipal government, that's going to be coming out in the fall. So there'll be other opportunities for involvement on this, and I was very pleased to play a small part in that. In terms of other activities, I think one of the key ones that I attended, and a few other members of council were here and we can hear from them, was the presentation from the Insurance Board of Canada about how we might prepare for climate change or mitigating any disasters, and top of my mind was some of the storms that we've experienced, for example, on the 14th of May. Do we have to do things differently because of climate change? So no doubt it'll be a topic around this table for a while here, and as we get our head around dealing with, should the climate change, what do we need to do to address that? So I'd like to open it up if members of council would like to give any reports from any of the sessions that they participated in, or they can do it at a subsequent meeting, bring that information forward, or bring it to our priorities and planning committee. How would you prefer to proceed, Councillor Durling?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While you were cutting the ribbon at Isaac Rail, I was in Niagara Falls attending to these seminars. The speakers who were very interested included Justin Trudeau, Thomas Mulcair, Elizabeth May, Lisa Raitt, and of course the celebrity speaker was Rick Mercer, who entertained extremely well. Not only were the educational sessions very, very informative and very helpful, the trade show itself offered a great variety of different things that can be of value to our staff, anything from IT to actually retrofitting a swimming pool to an excellent outdoor self-cleaning washroom. And we did make a lot of communication with these people, and I'm expecting to receive some information by email or mail, and when this does come in, I'll forward it through to staff, because there's some excellent products that are out there that we may be able to incorporate into some of our planning, the master plan for Peace Park, for example, and other things that are going on. So rather than to go into all of the details of that, certainly when this information does come through, I will give it to appropriate staff, or give it to our CAO, who can distribute it to appropriate staff, because there's some valuable things to explore that not only will benefit us as a municipality, but also could save us some money down the road. And I think it was very valuable. I just am very thrilled that I was able to attend this, because it certainly was a learning experience. Everything that I attended taught me something, and that's a wonderful thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, councillors. Councillor, any other councillors at this point? Councillor Papp?
Very quickly, I don't mean to, first of all, let me thank you, and I say that my colleagues as well, for the opportunity to attend FCM. It was important, I think, over the years. We all wanted to be there, but now we see across Canada. The highlight, besides all of this, the highlight for me was, as I was sitting there listening to Rick Mercer, I ran into what exactly you were dealing with as a moderator. I ran into a young man, 33 years old, who's become a councillor for the very first time in the city of Windsor. What was fascinating about him, and his name is Eric Kermaszczak. He's Polish. His father and his family came here in 1983 after Solidarity, if many of you remember. He had to leave the country. His whole family came here. And this young man has a PhD in political science and was just recently won a by-election in Windsor, and I spent over 2 hours, and I told him that as a young person, he was the solution, but he wants to continue in municipal politics. And I said, it's people like you who will take over the torch from us. So he was inspired, and this was his first time. He's only been on council for 6 months, so I filled him on how really to do it. But he was such an interesting fellow that he's going to come down here, and I want to see him. And they formed a couple of things that they did. I found it fascinating, Mr. Mayor, and I'll share it with you. He's going to send me, they formed a shadow cabinet, a shadow council of the city of Windsor that's nothing but youth between 18 and 30 years old. So they don't have any power, but they actually sit and represent their wards, and they use it as an input vehicle. And I said to send the module to us. I'd be fascinated to see how it works. It's sort of like a mirrors, but it's an actual. They're like
They
teaching
sit
them
at
how to.
council.
They're teaching them how to work it. So that was an incredible discussion. And to say the least, Mr. Mercer had us in stitches. I want to be on his production team.
Just on that, building on your comments from Windsor, there was a representative from Essex, and so it must be something in southwestern Ontario, who said that they actually invite and they vote at council 2 representatives from the high school.
Yep.
They would sit here at the council. They
That's
couldn't.
right,
They
that's
couldn't
what
vote on bylaws, and they're obviously excluded from the in-camera, but that they vote and participate in the debate. And it's a way to get youth involved. So, and that was very, very interesting for the entire group as I was moderating and sent ripples around and many people talking about it. So great to hear that there's a movement afoot in southwestern Ontario. So thank you for that. We look forward to more information on that. Anyone else on that, Councillor Lane?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree with the rest of the councillors that it was very beneficial. But a comment I would like to make is that I think that possibly in the future, some consideration, as I spoke to you earlier about, some consideration should be given, I think, in the future for these conferences like AMO and whatever, that some staff be allowed to attend these, if only for the trade show, if you will. That there's a lot of information that came out of these trade shows, very good information. Some of us fell in love, of course, with the toilet. But having said that, but all the things that are going on in town and all the people that are directly responsible for carrying on the day-to-day business and to acquire things and what have you, I think they should be given the opportunity, especially when their conferences are this close, to at least spend some time there. They might be enlightened, and it might give them some great background information to make their job easier too. So
Very
that's
good.
my comment on it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Anyone else on this particular? Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will concur with Councillor Lane and Councillor Durley that the innovative products that are out there that we were able to see during the trade show with various vendors is absolutely beneficial to a lot of the growth that we'll see in the town of Pelham. But on a lighter note, perhaps, I think one of the things that I particularly enjoyed was the opportunity to meet with other municipalities about some of the challenges that they face in their communities and how they deal with them. So, all in all, I enjoyed FCM as well.
Thank you very much. Any others? Okay, thank you very much. That is my report, and it has, with your addendums to it, and I appreciate that. It's been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, second by Councillor King, that my report to council for June 2nd be received for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item is the additional item that Councillor Papp moved, verbal report regarding the Seniors Advisory Committee. Councillor Papp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council, for allowing me just to spend a very brief moment on the Pelham Seniors Advisory Committee. A full report on our proceedings will be tabled with you on June 16th, but I did want to highlight a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank Jordan Mamalady. She did an incredible job of facilitating our How Might We session, dealing with what work the Pelham Seniors Advisory Committee needs to do. And we got through a lot of stuff in a matter of a couple hours and narrowed it down to six sort of key business areas and things that we can focus on. And we covered the whole gamut. Secondly, the committee itself wanted to also, and Jordan explained that I didn't realize we had already had a proclamation for Seniors Month, so that was done. The third part was this committee wanted to note that we are one of only two municipalities in Niagara where the actual Seniors Advisory Committee is an advisory committee of council. The others are, so it shows you how important it is. And it was ironic that same day on May 29th, I ran into Mr. Doug Rappeljee, the man who made me who I am. And he filled me in on that he's the chair of the Welland Seniors Advisory Committee and gave me a whole bunch of other information to help us move forward with all of the work. And finally, why I'm bringing this to you is two things. One is that the committee is looking to continue its sort of public launch and its exposure of what it does and what the work it does in the community. So they want to move forward on sort of developing a protocol and a sort of a presence for that people know what they've been, because it's been a couple of months and we didn't have a meeting for whatever reason, but now they've picked up steam. And then they want to focus in on doing a stakeholder forum in September, along with a survey and media publications. And I am going to be putting forward for consideration some form of a seed allocation of funds for them for this next few months for them to get started. And I don't want to get anybody caught off guard. I'll bring that forward at the June 16th meeting because they need some money to get at least started in some of these areas. And all of that is interrelated and directly related, and in some cases, to much of the work that we've been doing strategically with regard to seniors. We've got a great committee, and I must say that I was very, very impressed, and I think you will be when you see the proceedings of the May 29th meeting. And I'll look forward to a further discussion at our June 16th council meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I
I
appreciate
just wonder if it would be in order for them, the chair, to make a presentation to council
By all
on the
means,
16th.
they were gonna do
Maybe
that
would
tonight,
be
but- Yeah.
on the 16th, if that
Yeah.
would be appropriate.
I think that's great. That'd be terrific. I'll ask him to do that.
Okay.
Oh, that'd be great. Perfect.
Or whatever is appropriate for, works for them.
They want to get something done before the summer comes in because they want to ramp it up for the fall as far as these other areas. So
Very good.
that's a great suggestion. I'll have them, I'll have Judy and we'll work with Martha to do that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Perfect, thank you very much. Now, the next item is staff reports requiring action. We have one. I can't get the paper here. There we go, thank you. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. The council received the issue summary report recommendations to grant an extension of draft plan approval for Phase 2 of Woodlands subdivision, file number 26T19-05001, and that for reasons outlined in the issue summary report, council approved staff's recommendation to grant a 2-year extension of the draft plan approval for Phase 2 of the Woodlands subdivision affecting lots 3 through 20, fronting Balfour Street, the stormwater management, Block 25, blocks for road widening, Blocks 22 and 23, and blocks for reserves, Block 24, with a revised lapsing date of June 2nd, 2016, and the council approves staff's recommendation for the future development block located to the rear of Blocks 3 through 20, fronting Balfour Street, to form part of a future comprehensive East Fenwick secondary plan. Discussion to this particular item. Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just wondering, perhaps through you to the Director of Planning, this started in 2007. It's going to now, if in fact they meet this term, will be 2016. If in fact there is a challenge, will they be granted or another extension? I'm looking at, there's been quite a spread of years here, and we did run into this in some other situations earlier, and I'm thinking that there should not be another extension. Could you give us the groundwork as to what could happen here?
Mr. Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The application, the way it stands, is sound and justifiable from proposing the extension at this point in time. If they were to come in today with a subdivision of this nature, we would review it and likely offer a supportive recommendation on that. In 2 years' time, we don't know what will happen. Hopefully this will be built out. If in fact it's not built out and they come in again for an additional year's time, at that point, we'll have to review if it's a subdivision that we would still support, recommending approval of. In this case, although it was applied for historically and never matured to fruition, we would still support it. It's a good subdivision as it stands. 2 years' time from now, policies may change, direction of council may change, the flavor of council may change as well in terms of the appetite for this application. But I think from a planning point of view, if it maintains good planning, it would be supported as well.
My question wasn't about the quality of the subdivision, it's the timing that is the concern that I have. So in fact, what I'm saying is, if nothing else changes, 2006 is the deadline, get going or else, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Others? Mr. Glover, the extension could be for up to 3 years, is that correct?
But this extension is for 2 years, the region has requested.
I know, but we could say up to 3 years, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, but the region's suggesting 2, staff are suggesting 2. Why is it that you're suggesting 2 and not 18 months, not a year, not 3?
2 is what the applicants requested, and also it gives us the flexibility to review in 2 years' time whether it's, if they ask for another extension even, whether it's appropriate to grant another extension at that time. Hopefully within 2 years, the applicant feels that he'll be able to build that out.
Okay. When this applicant came last time, council said that we would extend it for 2 years, but wouldn't have any further extensions. Now, since that time, I understand that, and you can see it, there are buildings there. There has been development. Is that another reason why you're suggesting the extension, because there has been some activity?
No, the activity is a commercial or a business enterprise. We're not concerned with that. We're concerned with the plan of the subdivision, how it corresponds with the existing neighborhood, as well as what could be developed in the secondary plan of Fenwick once that's developed. The phasing of the development or the timing of the buildings is inconsequential to what the plan is that we're proposing. Of course, it's to everybody's benefit that we get this going, we get the development moving, housing occurs on the side in fashion that we're showing in the plan. But I don't think it has impact on the extension per se. And you're correct that council at that time indicated that they would give a 2-year extension last time with no other extensions, and that's council's prerogative, whether you wish to grant an approval on this or not. Speaking from a planning point of view, I believe that this is a good and sound plan to extend, taking note that council didn't want to extend it further last time. But from a planning point of view, we don't see a problem with that.
Okay, thank you. The final is, it says here that will require additional studies to determine servicing capacity requirements, and I did ask this during the planning meeting that we had. Are we aware whether those capacity requirements are there currently?
The additional studies, I believe, will be part of the agreement for the extension here. I'd have to confirm with staff as to the status of if they've begun those studies or not, but the stormwater block on the back of it is to help absorb any stormwater in this area. So I believe that the stormwater passages just need to be updated.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions. Any other councillors? We're ready for calling of the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Presentation consideration of bylaws is our next order of business, and that's been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration of the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass the same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. 1, being a bylaw to establish a system for administrative penalties respecting the stopping, standing, and parking of vehicles, and to amend bylaw number 38-2000. And 2, being a bylaw to establish the position of hearing officer. Questions or comments? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We do have some closed session items, and as is our tradition, it's been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Lane, that council recess the in-camera portion of the meeting and reconvene immediately following the committee meeting scheduled for this evening. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This meeting stands in recess until our committee meeting is over. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Couple-minute recess.